Hello, everybody. Hey, ladies. How's the sound? Can you guys hear me? Hold on. Let me see. Okay. How's it going? Happy Tuesday. So, I was out of town this whole weekend. I even took off work and everything to celebrate my cousin's birthday. It was super fun. But now I'm back and wanted to go live and talk to you ladies and see how you're doing. Make sure you like the video as you come on in. So I haven't really been online since I was, out of town this past weekend. But when I did come back on, like I saw like so many videos and reviews on I guess a debate regarding, is marriage worth it, right? Let me show you guys my screen. Hold on. So I saw this video on, is marriage worth it? And it was between Hafiz from the roommates. And if you guys, know about Hafiz, he used to in my opinion, I think he's really like changed his tune, his message. He used to be very much like pro man in the manosphere type of deal, and hold on, pro manosphere type of deal. He was, really into Kevin Samuels and just all that other stuff, right? But as you should know, well, you probably, whether you know or not, I don't know, but he is married now. He's a newlywed. So his message has kind of changed. He's no longer about just high value man getting all these options and just the same old rhetoric. He's more so now about building legacy and um, having strong men in the Black community, having strong Black men. And, he believes that this can happen through marriage, through fatherhood, and stuff like that. So he did have a live, not a live, a podcast episode. Hey Gwen, Gwen says he's always been for marriage. I do think, yeah, he's always been for marriage. There's also some content that I have seen of him not being against marriage, but being like the high value guy, exercise options and all that stuff. And now I don't hear him kind of singing that tune as much. And in this podcast, he talks about his change of tune a lot. And so he goes up against Coach Greg Adams. If you guys have heard of Coach Greg Adams, he's like a self-proclaimed forever bachelor who of course is a divorcee. Usually they are. And I don't think the men that speak against marriage, they tend to be divorced. But I also don't think that people know what a bachelor is. Like, a bachelor is not a man who was previously married and he's not a man that has kids. A bachelor is a young guy in his prime, who doesn't have that type of past, and he's doing well for himself. He's handsome. He's just the desirable man and the ideal man. Right. So I don't know why Coach Greg Adams considers himself a bachelor. He is not a bachelor. He's a father of two. He's a single dad and a divorcee. He's not a bachelor. He's just a single man. Like, I don't know. Like, that's really strange. And bachelors tend to be young. He says in this podcast episode that he's 46. So bachelors tend to be men, under the age of 40, ideally about 30 to 35. They're not these old guys with kids and previously married. They're not, those aren't bachelors. Right. And I'm starting to see this a lot of older guys who kind of want to make up for the quote unquote lost time they had in their own youth and try to still, make up for that lost time by living the lifestyle that they believe they never got to live because they decided to marry or have children at an early age. So since all that stuff didn't work out for them back then, now that they're older, they want to now proclaim to be bachelors, and they're not. They're not bachelors. They never will be, and that's that. So I watched this entire debate. I think it was a really really good debate. When I saw a lot of other commentaries on it in the comment section, a lot of guys were saying Hafiz got emotional and he wasn't making any points. And I'm really confused on how you watched this, on how you can watch this and think that Hafiz was really emotional. He was not. He was also making very good points. And that's not the first time that I've seen comments like that um, about a man who has any type of disagreements with the bachelor red pill lifestyle. Um, a lot of guys claim that just because a man is disagrees with the red pill and tries to make his point on why red pill lifestyle is not productive for young men today, he's called emotional. He's called, he doesn't make any sense all of a sudden. And that's really the problem with a lot of guys in general that literally psychologists are writing articles about, is that men are shaming other men when they do show emotion. And emotion is the very thing that men need to spend more time cultivating their emotional state so that they can have long lasting relationships and fulfilling lives. A lot of guys are trying to maintain this state of being like a stoic, and you know, I read a few books on, I guess it's called stoicism or being a stoic a while ago. And there's nothing wrong with controlling your emotions. Actually, you should control your emotions, but trying to act like nothing matters and being extremely nonchalant, especially in regards to a romantic relationship, I don't believe personally is going to breed positive results in your relationship, in your marriage, or if you become a parent. You have to have some kind of emotion and you have to stand firm in your emotion. Obviously, don't let your emotions ruin your life and take you off the deep end, but don't act like things just don't matter to you when they clearly do. So it's a lot of men in the comments saying that that's how Hafiz is that he's too emotional, and the passion that he has around marriage and legacy building is, it's a turn off and all these things for other women. It makes him look weak as a man. And the crazy part is a lot of men are considering men like Hafiz as weak because he's advocating for like marriage and relationships amongst young men, and the balance that you should have when you have an outlook on marriage as a man, which he talks about a lot in this podcast episode. And they consider him weak, but a weak man is a man who can't lead a household. And in my opinion, it's a man who doesn't want to, who can't, who doesn't have the discipline to, who doesn't have the morality and the integrity to. Men who lead households historically and traditionally were considered the strong masculine men, the men who were able to keep their households together, were able to take care of their children. Like those were the men who were considered strong historically, and considered that way, and that standard was set by other men. Like, this wasn't a standard or an outlook that was created by women back then. This was created by other men. So it's just really weird how a man advocating for a family, marriage, legacy building, what have you, is considered weak to these red pill men, and men like Coach Greg Adams, who says he's done with marriage, that he, doesn't, he even says in this podcast that he doesn't even date. He mates like an animal, right? Like, he mates like a cat and dog. That's how he deals with women romantically. And they consider men like that to be strong and to be the ones that, men should try to strive to be and look up to. Right. And the thing is, Hafiz actually made a lot of great points in this video. He made a lot of great points by saying, that if we have a society that only benefits men and women are always getting the short end of the stick, which would mean children probably get the short end of the stick as well, that's not a healthy society, and that's not a good society whatsoever. But in the reverse, if women are always winning and then children are, always winning, but then the men suffer, that's not going to be a good society either, because we still need men to win in some capacity and create strength. So I'm going to play a little bit of this because there was some pretty good points made on this debate. Is marriage worth it? I kind of don't even know where to start. But before I play some of it. So the woman here, she's been married for over 20 years. She says that she believes she is happily married. Like, her and her husband still go on dates and love each other, and the intimacy is still there. And but interesting story about her, she says that she's actually an OnlyFans model, and she used to be like I guess maybe, I don't want to say stay-at-home mom, but she says like a hockey mom. And so now she does OnlyFans, and she's on Instagram and making money that way while married to her husband. So I think that, that's very interesting. I know there are some women who do OnlyFans that are married, but they're not, too common. And they definitely beat the stereotype that men in this space place on OnlyFans girls, that they're just a bunch of single, attention seeking, easy girls. But women like this one, who has an online presence and is still married, she kind of debunks that stereotype. But they also say, and she does agree in this podcast, that she's considered the exception to the rule, that she's not, she knows that that every woman who does OnlyFans isn't happily married. But let me go ahead and just play this.
Natalia in the house. She's always here.
Hello.
You love her. You've seen her. You want her. People are DMing. People are DMing me. What's up, bro? Hook me up with Natalia. What's the deal? I can't go that far. Nat, fill us in on what you got going on, and let's introduce, and then we'll meet our panel officially.
Well, I first want to say welcome, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. It's a beautiful Thursday here in this rainy Florida, down south.
If you ever get married again, would you get a prenup?
I would advise
Clearly,
every
yes?
man. I mean, listen, a prenup is somewhat of a protection.
You didn't choose cat allergies, your hairline, or that thing when your knee just gets.
It's just something to fight over in court. If there's something to be there, she could just fight it, and now you lost on the money, right? But I did not. I would encourage men to do so if they want to do
Allie,
it.
when you got married, did you have a prenup?
No, and honestly, just hearing you speak, I feel like you come from a place that obviously had a negative experience with stuff, or you kind of, I guess I can't imagine ever looking into a marriage, like even going into the thought of marriage, maybe because I was so young and I didn't have to, with so much like guardedness. I feel like going into a marriage and falling in love with someone, there's a little bit of a leap of faith there. And so sometimes when you make it too transactional, I don't know. I feel like for me, it would take a lot away. And maybe again, because I was so young, we were kids ourselves. We didn't have anything to protect. But I feel like maybe that mindset is what's quite toxic for people that aren't able to find love, is when you constantly live in that, well, she might screw me over, I got to protect this. Like, how can you ever fully let yourself like go and submit to just being in love and like letting that guard down? And I think the women have a lot to lose too. It's not just men, obviously.
Right. But we don't speak from the women's perspective because we're men.
Yes.
But we also have to understand people go homeless over this. People lose their lives over this. This is serious.
Yeah.
It's like saying I joined the military and I was just hoping that I came out of the war not injured, not disabled, not ruined mentally. And then, I don't know why you would go over there and think that. Well, this is a battle.
Well,
and the battles are won and lost in these.
It's not a battle, though. I think this is where the language has to be used correctly. And I think to me, I love the balancing act that's going to happen today, because I think what's going on is that I understand. So there's this idea of Eastern versus Western marriage. Let's just say Greg is on the East, she's on the West. Eastern marriage is all about logic. Does it make sense? Arranged marriages, right? Two families, two worldviews, two ideologies. Doesn't matter how you feel. It matters, does it make the most sense?
They're the most successful, by the way, arranged marriages.
We can talk about that in the future.
Sure. Yeah.
So Greg comes from that mentality of, if you're gonna get in this agreement, you need to write out the agreement clear as day. What does this entail? What does it get? If you leave, you get this. If you leave without this, you don't get nothing. Like, it's a very systematized business kind of contract, because it's a business contract. Because, and this is why when you were talking about the idea of like when men fail in marriage, they lose everything. That's wrong.
No, I didn't say they lose everything, but they lose an awful lot.
Let's stop. That's still wrong.
But why is it wrong?
Because let me tell you why. Because when men lose at anything in life, they lose a lot. You lose your job. Who's gonna come save you? If you screw your friends over, like, as a man, that's the name of the game. You lose, you're gonna lose a lot. You fail, you're gonna fail a lot. So I'm not saying that it's wrong, like marriage doesn't count. I'm saying marriage is a part of all the things as a man where you cannot get wrong, which is why I agree with the message that you're giving at times. That's why you got to be 100% serious. You don't go at this naive. You don't go at this because you understand that there is a cost for this decision. So going back to the Eastern thing, but on the West, you have marriage as all feelings. Oh my gosh, we love each other. Oh, we don't, you know what? You make $1 million, I make $10,000. We're gonna be together for the rest of our lives. Oh, you're this, you're that. Oh, your dad was an alcoholic. We'll never have any problem. Like, it's a very naive model, right? And that's why Western marriages have issues, because it's all feelings. And to me, which is why I love Adam, is about balance. How do we balance these two ideologies? Because to Ali's point, if it's all logic, it's boring. If it's all robotic, there's no passion, there's no excitement, there's no je ne sais quoi. It's just a dry thing that in the modern world, people don't want that, right? But if it's all feelings, there's no structure, there's no protection, there's no wisdom, there's no guidance. So I think it's a marriage of those two ideas to be able to create long-term solutions for long-term success. And that's why I just think sometimes when we come from too much leaning on one direction, either or, it becomes problematic.
I believe he agreed with me, though. I thought he was disagreeing.
Well, I guess I was agreeing. That's how I play. I was like,
So just to be clear, did you get a prenup when you got married?
No, and I
didn't.
I'll explain to you guys why. So I think, and I talked about this, I love.
So I do think that Hafiz made some really good points. I'm kind of just playing the this podcast, like, just kind of all over the place and touching certain things. So there was just so many parts of this that I wanted to touch on, but I think Hafiz is making some good points when it comes to marriage, especially when it comes to marriage, on how men should be seeing it. I don't think that, I don't think that, it is okay to only look at marriage as feelings, because it's a lifetime commitment, and you can't just marry someone that makes you feel good. You have to marry someone where the lifestyles, the value, the integrity, everything is in alignment. And you're not going to benefit just marrying a man who looks good, who makes you laugh. I mean, that could be an avenue to open up for something greater, but it can't be the foundation as to which you base your lifetime commitment onto that.
Love the prenup conversation. I think it's important. There's three reasons why I didn't get a prenup. But the first reason is I actually believe prenups are good and bad. They're good because they protect you. They're bad because they don't protect you enough. What I personally believe is something which I did research about this, called a marriage contract. You may not like this, but please give this to me. How many kids do you have?
3. So
let's say Ali married her man and she said she wanted 3 kids. Right? She gets married. She wants 3 kids. All of a sudden, prior to marriage, he agrees. She said, honey, I want 3 kids. Is that cool with you? He said, of course, baby. You want 3 kids? We're gonna have 3 kids. She's married. 5 years into it. Hey, when are we having our kid? Next year. when are we having our kid? Next year. It's year 8. He's like, I don't want any kids anymore. Should she stay in that marriage? He agreed, and she both agreed that we were gonna have 3 kids. That's why she married him. When it was time to have kids, he changed his mind. Well, I don't want kids anymore. Should she stay in that marriage? Let's go on the guy's side, because the red pill guys love when guys are being the victim. So you're a man, and in your marriage, you agreed that we're gonna have sex, let's say twice a week. That's an
agreement.
I'm just saying
that's a verbal contract.
We're agreeing that we get in
week.
at least twice a week. All of a sudden, she's like, I'm not in the mood anymore. She's like, oh, now I'm on my
that
period.
Won't be all of a sudden. That'd be almost immediate. But go ahead.
Okay, and then months into it, right?
Yeah.
She says, well, I only want to have sex once every 6 months. Should he stay there? You both agreed initially, like, yo, we're gonna do this consistently, and now he's getting it. Should he stay there? So to me, what's very important about the marriage is that before you get into it, both of you guys need to agree upon everything. This is where I think the nuance in the evolution.
Okay, so I'm gonna fast forward to a different part of the video. I'm kind of like watching it again, or watching it on a separate device so that I can really see which part I want to tackle on. I think it's right about here. Let's start here. Okay.
There's always truths in what people say. Like you say a lot of things that are true.
Is she tired? Sad? Mad? Bored?
Sex twice a week. My husband and I are still intimate very often after years. What he's saying isn't true. I agree. I mean, there's plenty of people that are still very intimate within their marriage. I don't know why there's just so many men on here that swear women don't want intimacy, or it lowers when, like, further down into the marriage, or say even after you have kids, right? They say that your desire to have sex goes down a lot. I don't believe that for a majority of women, hence why majority of women end up having more than one child, which means that they have to have sex again to continue to have all those kids. So that's just definitely not true. So there's plenty of people that are still, having intimacy within their marriage. I don't understand this absolute type of statement that women lose sexual desire within their marriage or amongst their husband after a few years. Women also have, libido and want to sleep with their man just as much as men have the desire for sex. We tend to not care as much about the act of sex, but we still enjoy it, especially if it's with a man you're in love with, that you're married to. Of all men that you would ever lay down with, that is supposed to be the one that you have the most absolute desire for, and that you ideally are not going to reject like he's just some regular schmegler from the street. He's your husband.
And stare, it's not going to benefit people's lives. And so to me, I think one of the fundamental challenges is when you come at things from a perspective of things are going to fail. Mm-hmm. When you come at things from a perspective as worst case scenario, like, so this is interesting. I won't get too lost in the sauce, but this is interesting TV show where this guy he spent an hour watching the worst events in humanity. The worst murders, the worst rapes, the worst thefts. He saw the worst in humanity for an hour. After watching the worst in humanity for an hour, how do you think he felt about humans, Adam?
Yeah, obviously he was just
probably felt like crap. He probably felt really bad. So what happens so often in the marriage conversation, like I said, it's balance. Too many guys in the comments in this red pill world, they are consumed with the worst case scenario. And there's enough stories like that for days. Mm-hmm. He can spend 48 hours telling us every single worst case scenario, and he's only touching the tip of the iceberg of all the stories he's heard. There's enough information about the worst case scenario, about marriage, about divorce. Oh, she left me, and there's enough of that in this world. And so my biggest thing is that how does that make society better? Especially, I'm passionate about it, going back to like Black community. The biggest issue that's plaguing the Black community, when I ask Candace Owens on the right, if you can ask Dr. Eric Dice on the left, they'll tell you it's fatherlessness, broken families, not enough husbands and wives coming together, raising families. That's what's destroying the Black community. That's what I'm passionate about. And so to me, the biggest thing is how is simply spending all day, keyword all day, majority of my day, hearing about the worst case scenario about marriage and divorce.
So he makes a few points here. A lot of the men in the red pill, black pill, whatever community, they only talk about the negativities when it comes to marriage or when it comes to women. And sometimes when it even comes to having children, a lot of them will say, if you have the kids, you'll lose them. You'll never see them. The woman will try to sabotage the time you spend with them. And, that's just, that's not always the case. Men are abandoning their kids way more than the women are just taking the kids away for money and other selfish reasons. Now, does that happen? Do women actually use their kids as, a vendetta against the father? Yes, that does happen. There are some women who, in my personal opinion, probably shouldn't have become mothers because they're putting that toxicity in their child's life and using the father as a way to do that. But that's not happening as much as men, having children with women that they don't want to marry, and overall just choosing not to be involved in the child's life. That's happening way, way more. So, if you're always talking about that in these spaces, it is going to sound like marriage isn't worth it. It is going to sound like women are the enemy and out to get you because you're only listening to the negative. Now, they do start talking about religion in this podcast. So I'm actually going to fast forward to that part because I think that was probably the most, in my opinion, the most important part of this conversation is when they did start getting spiritual and just how spirituality can affect your marriage in a positive and or even negative way.
At the end of the day, your marriage is between you, your significant other, and the
right
state.
Here on earth.
Forget it.
Bro Hair Serum is our best.
Not in the clouds. And
that's what he's. That's essentially
did you
what
ask him a question, or
no?
I'm
just bringing this out to the panel.
What we tell people is that hope is not a strategy. All right. Hope is not a strategy in anything. I hope my business goes well. I hope I don't get injured today. I hope I succeed today. We tell people real life principles. All right. We don't live in the clouds. We live here on earth, whether you believe this is heaven or hell. So I want you guys to understand you're dealing with earth here. This is a reality.
Are you a believer?
Absolutely not.
You're not a believer of God.
No.
Okay, but obviously, Hafiz, you are.
Yeah. And
Were
so
you ever a believer?
So how can you say that?
Here's the deal. What tends to happen is people are introduced to things based on someone else's biases. Okay. And those biases are introduced to children and so forth, and so on. So yes, at some point, that was the only story I knew until I investigated on my own, decided as a man what principles to stand on, and then realized I don't live by hope. I don't live by cope. I live with what's real here. Okay. And let's talk about what's real instead of the mystique of this damn thing here. What's real is hope is not a strategy.
So if you don't, I love it. Can I address it?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So first and foremost, like I said, it's very interesting. I've always told you got to hear someone's background, and then you know where they lean. That's where you know where their advice gears towards. So it's such a even when I talk about God, like the idea of God in his brain is not the idea I'm talking about.
Okay, so before he goes on, this isn't Like, this isn't out of the ordinary, right? For men who don't believe in God, who had majority of probably negative experiences, have been let down in a serious way, to, neglect religion altogether or any form of spirituality, and completely just make their life based off of what's happening, like on earth, but not on what's happening from a spiritual aspect, if that makes sense. Like, if you're a Christian, if you are a believer, you kind of have a balance of both, right? Essentially, you have a balance of what's happening in the world, and you have a balance of your spiritual life, your Christian life, your belief, what you're praying about, what God is telling you, what you're being led to do through the Holy Spirit. And, this is not the first time I've heard non believers talk like this. Even if you're not very religious at all, or you haven't been to church in a while, or you haven't read your Bible in a while, if you are just a overall in general believer of God, God is not a genie, all right? People like Coach Greg Adams probably saw God as like a person who's going to send him, grant all his wishes and send him gifts and give him all these absolute guarantees. And the moment it didn't go his way or didn't go the way he thought God would help him, God would make it go his way, he's now just a non-believer. Now he doesn't think God is real. God doesn't exist, because if he existed, why do bad things happen? But we all have free will. And our free will means we have freedom to obey God, pray, worship him, and we have the freedom to not do any of those things. And just because you are a believer in God also doesn't mean you're going to receive blessings. Sometimes there's people who are believers that aren't getting everything that they want, because there's just certain things that they need to do in order to receive that blessing. And it's not that they're not receiving it because they're not worthy or because God hates them. It's just that they have an assignment, they have things they need to do, they have a direction that they need to go. And so God isn't just going to grant them their wishes. Like, God isn't Santa Claus, and he's not a genie. So it just doesn't work like that. So, Hafiz, will go on to talk about how, when you talk about like believing in God and praying to God and being led by him, it's not that you're full of hope and you're naive and your head is up in the clouds. Is that you are using your discernment and your wisdom to make sure that you make the right decisions. And that is really a big portion of what it means to believe in God. Your actions, where you're choosing to go in the world, and your level of faith is a big portion of your belief system in God. And it's a big portion of how you're going to get what you want, how you're going to be able to unlock and receive those blessings God has for you. A lot of people think God is just supposed to do things for them because they believe they're a good person, and that's just not how it works, not by a long shot.
It's this interesting verse in the Bible. I won't get too lost in the sauce, in the book of Isaiah, where God is, where somebody's like farming, and he's talking about the intricacies of farming. And he says, even that wisdom comes from God. God is not the God of get married happily ever after. That's foolishness. God gives you wisdom. What is the wisdom? Actually do premarital counseling. What is the wisdom? Actually be able to decide, okay, if things don't work out, what are we going to do? Where are the kids going to go? What's the money going to go? Things going to work out. Who's going to be the primary breadwinner? Who's not? God gives you the wisdom to be intelligent, to be able to navigate. Hope is not a strategy. 100% right. Hope is not a strategy. But God's message is not just simply blind hope. It's wisdom. Literally, Jesus said, be as wise as a serpent, but as innocent as a dove. You have to understand how to, what does a serpent do? He's able to navigate on this earth. Mm-hmm. So 100% right. No one's teaching hope as a strategy. That's a straw man argument. But true godly wisdom is relevant. True godly wisdom is what made Adam a millionaire. True godly wisdom is what made Patrick Bet David build this amazing company. It's actual practical step-by-step guidance that benefits people's lives. So no one's talking about hope being a strategy. Simply pray to God and your marriage is going to work out. That's foolishness. What did I say? Naivete, nihilism, realism is in the middle. No one's saying being naive. So when I'm talking about godliness in marriage, those are certain principles and wisdoms. Is it going to be that if you follow God, you'll never get a divorce? No. There's nothing in life where nothing bad is going to happen. You can do everything the right way and the wrong thing can still happen. But does that mean you should do things the wrong way? Absolutely not. And so my biggest thing is that we need to give men as much practical wisdom, and women as well, give them as much practical wisdom that can build a healthy, successful marriage. When he talks about don't get married without leverage, I guarantee if he expounds upon leverage, those are all godly principles. Those are all biblical principles that what he's going to describe in what he defines as leverage, being masculine, you know what I mean? Protecting your assets, all the things he would describe.
I might, honestly, I'm going to have to disagree on that little part he said about his definition of leverage. And then he points to Coach Greg Adams to go on to list masculinity and all these things that he believes are the principles of God. But I think when Coach Greg Adams says men should only marry if they have leverage, I think what he means by saying that is, men should just have more and be and have more power than the woman. Now, essentially, I also promote hypergamy. So I think that women should marry up, if not only out. For Black women in particular, I think they should marry up, especially if you want a man who's a provider. It is essential that he has, resources to do that if you want a traditional relationship. But there's a lot of men who are saying leverage, and they're not speaking of it the way that Hafiz is saying about the principles of a godly man. There's these other red pill guys are saying leverage as in they have more than the woman in the event that, she wants to leave or try to do something crazy to the relationship. He has the power to make sure it doesn't happen. Like he has the power over her in a way that she doesn't win in the end, because the men in the red pill and the manosphere space, what I don't even think a lot of people understand when they really listen to these messages is that it is very pro man. It's very pro the man winning in the end, the woman getting nothing. So that is the leverage that a lot of red pill guys, from what they say, that's what they mean. The leverage to the point where you don't lose, she does, or something happens to her, whatever, but the man just doesn't lose. That's the type of leverage that I do believe Coach Greg Adams is talking about, that I don't think Hafiz is acknowledging. Leverage to these men is not masculinity and being honest and working hard. Like that's not what they mean in the red pill space. They mean power to the point where you can, in the event the woman turns on you, you can take her down in court, whatever, or you're just not affected, or she can't take all you got, and so forth. Right. So that's what leverage means in that space. Now, obviously, like I just said, if you want a provider man, he's going to need to have the resources to do so. Not saying he has to be rich, but men don't have to be rich and they can still provide. So he's just going to have to fall within that realm. And, in general, that's what a lot of women want a traditional relationship, but they don't want a man with leverage that is going to use it against them. They don't want a man with leverage that has no integrity, that has no character, that has no discipline, that has no, desire to help other people and have and serve other people. Like his leverage is only going to be beneficial to him in the end and no one else. Like I don't think anyone wants to be underneath a man like that is always thinking himself first, even in a worst case scenario, meaning he will, push come to shove, he will abandon the woman and the children he created with her to meet his own desires and needs. I don't think any woman really wants to be with a guy like that, because long term, that is dangerous. And in the last live, one of you ladies were saying that patriarchy can be dangerous. And that is a way patriarchy can be dangerous. When you have men that do have leverage, but are at the same time willing to use it against you.
describe as leverage, that is godly wisdom. He may not view it as godly because his view of God is just some old white man in the clouds telling you to simply just do whatever you want, right? But to me, true godly wisdom is relevant, it's practical, it improves lives because, like Jordan Peterson said, it's in line with the truth. And if you're in line with the truth, they can give you the best case scenario, not a perfect life, but the best life.
You should have been a preacher, brother. You could have killed that thing. I appreciate that. Let me ask Ali a question. You said, are you a believer?
I've never been exposed to religion,
so you're not a religion whatsoever.
I don't want to.
So I'm gonna frame this. I don't want to be inappropriate. You don't believe in God. However, you are married for the past 22 years. So you're in a, I'm just gonna use air quotes, godless marriage, right? You also
I wouldn't call it godless.
Okay. You also do OnlyFans. So there's gonna be possibly people on this panel that are gonna say you're sinning.
I respect that. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Again, zero judgment here. I don't give a shit. I've dated an OnlyFans girl. I've dated a girls who go to church. I'll date all your girls. I don't give a shit. Okay, I'm human. So when you hear God, no God, sinner, OnlyFans, work, marriage, let's just say God's looking down, and let's say Ali and Steve are married for the next 50 years. They have this amazing, beautiful marriage. They've got kids. They've made millions. She's blessed the world with kids and grandkids, and they've been married forever. Amazing. And at the same time, OnlyFans and coveting other, everything that kind of goes with that. Like, how do essentially, I'm asking Hafiz this, but I'll let you answer first. How do you, grapple with those two polarizing opposites?
Yeah, I would say our home life and our family structure. I do believe in the nuclear family. I believe in, husband and wife. And I think there's probably quite a few godly principles in our home and the way that we feel that are morally and ethically the right way to do things. That's not come from any exposure to religion. It's just what I personally believe is the right way to do things and wrong. And I grew up in a crap home, crap parents, terrible life. And my husband, same thing. So we didn't really
So a man who's capable of aggression, but has it under control.
Anyone to mold or model that off of. But I would say our home, it definitely runs that way. For me to balance the two, a lot of people are fascinated by my story because of all the money I make and yada, yada, and what I'm doing and how do I do it. I'm always more fascinated by how am I the exception to this, right? Because how does a healthy marriage, because I would consider my marriage healthy. We have a great family, we raised our children, everything's wonderful. How does this even intertwine into our life, and how do we manage it? And how does my life is it still so normal family in a way? I mean, behind what we're doing behind closed doors is what we were doing anyway. We just have a camera now. But I'm more interested in that aspect and the psychology of it, because I think I don't, like I said, I can't really label my principles in our household because I don't have a religion and I don't oppose to anyone. I just always live my life by what I feel and what, my husband and I, what we feel is the right way to do things. And I think a lot of people get really hung up on labels and got to do this. Well, there's these, and I've never wanted to live that way, and I never have. And so for me, I feel like I am my own religion. And that's just the way, the principles that we've chosen.
I think what's so interesting about your story is that it's hard to pin you down. It's like, well, women need to be, obedient and subservient to their husbands. You're like, well, I kind of am. I'm a house,
That's what we're doing together.
Right. And, women need to be sexy for their husbands. Well, every day, baby.
Yeah.
Right. And women shouldn't do OnlyFans. It's like, well, I do. And I make a lot of money from it, but I'm also married. So it's like, I try to,
this also wasn't my
it's very hard to pin you down and say, well, you should do this. It's like, well, it's working for me.
Oh, and a lot of people say, oh yeah, she has no education, she'll go broke. It's like, I have a doctorate degree. Like, I'm an incredibly intelligent woman. I've done my career. I was in the medical field and I weighed my options at that point. And of course, a lot of it, I was pushed out of the situation, unfortunately. And, I'm not going to play a victim. I seen your show about OnlyFans and victims. And I don't play
Hafiz's or Coach?
Coaches. You had an episode on that about OnlyFans girls victim when their stories come out, and I had a very viral story. I certainly don't play the victim, but I do feel, that I was obviously pushed out too early from what I wanted to do. I was very.
You would still be being a nurse right now.
Absolutely. I mean, I literally graduated the same month that they let me go. Like, I got my doctorate degree. I was going on to do nursing research. So for me, I think a lot of people look at that, and to me, it's just more the.
Okay, so I'm gonna fast forward a little bit. Hey Lumi, hey ladies coming in, make sure to like the video. Hey Black Widow Row. So, in general though, I think marriage is definitely worth it, in my opinion. I don't think, marriage has so many economic benefits as well as benefits to your kids. If you have them in your marriage, it's really weird that people are trying to take marriage out of society, particularly here in the Western part of the world, and really go towards hookup culture or being by themselves. Now, I think if I can recall in the Bible, it does say that, you know, not everyone is going to get married, but not because it's God's commandment. Actually, God has commandments that are the complete opposite of taking you out of marriage. God loves marriage because it is a covenant, but not a lot of people are going to be married. I mean, a lot of people are not going to get married because of their choices and the things that they choose to do and the type of people they choose to surround themselves by, where their focus is, where their heart is, and where their mind is. Those are things that are going to lead them out of having a covenant between another person and God, such as marriage. So God actually loves marriage. He loves to see us together. He, what is the scripture where three or more are gathered, he's there, or whatever. God doesn't want us to be by ourselves. Human beings weren't created to be on our own. So I don't know I don't know how, content that talks about women being the enemy and marriage is, not worth it. I don't know why that content is getting so popular. Because also the research is saying that because so many people, especially men, aren't getting married as much, they are literally suffering mentally and emotionally because they don't have a partner to share real intimacy with and a genuine emotional connection with. Okay, hookup culture is not beneficial for men in the long term. And I don't think hookup culture is beneficial to women, period. Not at all. And it's beneficial to men for literally a moment, and then it doesn't work for them afterwards either. So marriage is very valuable. It is worth it. It's just a matter of, is it going to happen, and when is it going to happen, with who, and how is it going to go? But to question an institution that has quite literally been around for centuries and in the eyes of God since the beginning of time is ludicrous. And to question institutions such as marriage that is still going on in other parts of the world, but yet in this part of the world we're questioning it, is also just as ludicrous. So let me fast forward to a different part. I think it gets a little bit more interesting. They play. Okay.
Nat, I put a video up there. This is Coach talking about. I hope this is the correct video about. Let's just make sure production room that we got the audio and good to go. But I think this is the clip that I wanted to discuss with Coach about what's basically going on with social media today and what you would call the young men versus young women social media disparity. Can we play this clip?
Yes.
Group, young girls develop, they're gonna get a lot of attention. Young boys are simply not. He's gonna witness his female counterparts on TikTok, 10,000 followers, 20,000, 30,000, million followers. What does that do to the dynamics and the hierarchy on campus? Can he get this girl now? He has no chance, and he's gonna grow up with them through high school, believing I have no chance at women. The self-esteem of this kid is going to get killed. The only thing he can reach out now to are Instagram thoughts and pornography. At a certain age.
Yeah. So very interesting conversation here. Okay. And this will have a, so basically, if I can sum up what you're saying, 21-year-old guy, 21-year-old girl, 21, maybe you're, a senior in college. Maybe you've been working for a couple of years as a guy. 21-year-old female, same exact situation. Maybe you're a senior in college. Maybe you're been working for a couple of years. The only difference is, as a woman, you can kind of get a lot of eyeballs out there on the social media platforms. Like it's taken me hard work to get to where I'm at right now. And a girl does the exact same thing. All she has to do is put some bikini pictures out there. Much easier for a woman. And you're basically saying it for a 21-year-old comparing himself, trying to get another 21-year-old female. Oh man, life is going to be tough for you, brother.
It's a little bit tougher than when I grew up in the olden days, in a time where a woman probably wouldn't get maybe 3 men in their entire city or county or neighborhood or school. If that, she might go to the rival high school potentially and get some attention. Now it's a little bit more vast. There's a lot more choice for
global sexual marketplace.
And here's the funny thing. My young lady here,
Natalia,
she mentioned this earlier because she's in the dating minefield. She says, you know, she has a lot of options. I get a lot of offers
both ways too.
She's beautiful,
and she should. And
Yes.
what we have to understand is, as young men, this is where I position myself as young men. Typically, 70% of men tend to be invisible to the world until they, as you said, put in 20 years worth of work. And then it's easy for you to hop on social media with the Bugatti and the Lamborghini, and you handsome and you got your beard in and you got all of that stuff. Oh, you can jump on now and you can get a lot of attention. But that's a waiting game that men at this particular point, I'm going to say, based on the pornography industry being $1 billion industry, we know young men are consuming it. Based on Instagram, I can put a post up on Instagram. Ain't nobody going to like it. But if a young woman just comes in and
So this is a part of the conversation I find is just really, really annoying. A lot of guys in this space are angry and mad and upset and frankly just jealous that women get attention for being themselves, but men are the ones giving them the attention. No woman wakes up who's minding her business, decides to go to the farmer's market and to the town or go to the store or whatever, and she doesn't have control over who is checking for her. Like if you're out minding your business once again and a man decides to approach you, that's not your fault. That's not within your control either. So when men get mad, oh, all these girls are getting attention and it's going to ruin young men because they're not getting any attention. And just the fact that he's basing a man's self-esteem off of how much attention he gets from women in general, that teaching that is very damaging to younger men. Younger men should not be worried about how many girls are liking their pictures and how many girls are, checking for them in the DMs. Younger men need to be focused on building. Younger men need to find confidence in their skill sets, in their ability to communicate, in their articulation, in their ability to read things and interpret things. Their confidence should not come from girls off of Instagram. Their confidence should not come from the pretty girl who's varsity cheerleading captain or whatever. That is the most shallow and low vibrational avenue of getting your self-esteem. And if you're a believer and a Christian person, it should really come from the Most High. Like you shouldn't even be trying to get self-esteem from another human being. Like that's what's crazy to me. If you're not religious, if you're not that close to God, your self-esteem still, I don't believe, should come from a human being anyway. It should come from who you are as a person, your skills, and what you have to offer to society as far as your talents, your hobbies. That should be your core, your value system. That should be your core, core way of getting that personal fulfillment. If you have to rely on how much a person is checking for you to feel special, that is a sign of weakness. A lot of these people are looking for we're really men, a lot of younger men, especially from what Coach Greg Adams is saying. He is literally saying that younger men are looking for validation from other girls who make it clear that they don't even want them. Right? So now this is how the tactics in the manosphere come in, where now they're starting to shame women for not choosing certain men, that women are saying, we don't want these guys. And even historically, that's how I know the men today would not be able to last back in the old days, because the only men that were even allowed access to women in that way were successful men, or men who were known in the village, in the community, as men of value. Maybe they weren't rich, but they were highly skilled. They were very wise and articulate, charismatic, and they worked very well, and they were just kind people. But these men who are horrible at communicating, jealous, and have no real moral ground or integrity or any real character and frankly any real personality, they would not have any access to women. They would be pawns working for the guy who is able to make the connections and sustain the relationships. They would be frequently going to brothels because that's probably the only way they could even be near a woman. Fathers would not give their daughters to these types of guys. They just wouldn't. So today, men have it very easy. Men have it very easy today of any kind to have an access to women. So now they're complaining even more about how that access isn't giving them the type of attention that they want. It's really about them being jealous of women for being ourselves and being liked or regarded for that reason. Men are upset that they actually have to work to gain some value, to gain some attention, to gain any type of recognition. But in actuality, guys, everyone has to do that. Beauty in a woman, that can only get you so far as a woman. If you're a beautiful woman, that's not going to guarantee that you're going to stay in the room. You still, as a woman, need to have some form of decorum, etiquette, poise, intellect about yourself, a level of femininity that is healthy, welcoming, nurturing, and is kind-hearted to other people. If you're a pretty girl but you're a brat, you don't listen, you yell, you get emotional and erratic, people aren't going to really want you around that long, or they're going to want you around but at a distance. They're not going to want to get close to you. So essentially everyone has to put in some form of personal work within themselves to get the type of recognition that they desire from society. But if you're putting in that personal work, it shouldn't be for recognition. The recognition is a result of the work. If you're doing the work right, you will naturally attract people that want to be with you. You will naturally attract people that check up on you and want to give you attention if you're putting in that personal work for you first and foremost. Everything else that is amazing, that everyone says that they want from the world, society, other people, is a result of that. It shouldn't be your basis for it.
Gives her what Mother Nature has blessed her with, or what the miracles of modern science has injected into her. Now she gonna get a whole bunch of attention, and then that puts me in that same age group at a significant disadvantage that people aren't addressing. I don't like when people complain about it. I just present it as a reality of the situation, and until the porn industry becomes bankrupt, my opinion is going to be true.
Well, what about athletes now? So male athletes
which
get
is
far
a very
more
small
attention. They get far more attention than women, and that's another thing off their what God grace gave them is their athletic abilities.
It's the same thing,
and it's the same thing. And I also have to ask, your Instagram thought comment. Obviously, I'm on Instagram. I post bikini pics.
TikTok.
And TikTok thought, whatever it is.
TikTok.
Am I Instagram TikTok thought to you? I mean, am I the person you're just when you say that? Am I the category, or is
that's how you make your money, right? That's how you.
But
that's how you butter your bread.
What is a thought to you?
Hold on, let me come back. Let me come back and answer something here. When we talk about athletes and male athletes, I actually addressed this, and I addressed it this morning.
Far more.
What male athletes tend to fall into the same category as female people who get attention. However,
I think they're way upper echelon.
Watch this. What percentage of men are successful female athletes versus
successful female?
Successful male athletes. Sorry.
Hey.
What percentage? Let me say this again. Let me say it again. What percentage?
I'm the best WNBA player out there.
Correct. Yeah. Correct.
I knew it.
Let me say it
I'm
again.
the worst NBA player.
What percentage of males are successful male athletes? Very small.
0.0001%.
Very small. Now, what percentage of young girls jumped on TikTok and went on there and got 100,000?
What do you consider successful though? Because there's a lot of people that have millions of followers, and I know some of these girls, they don't make nothing. Like that's not
and that's the trap. Well,
I don't even have that much followers. They would never think I make.
But that is the trap that I'm trying to make you aware. See, we showed a 20-second clip, and you're trying to jump all of this, and you're saying, "What about this and what about that?"
Well, you said Instagram thoughts. You said TikTok thoughts.
But that doesn't mean you're making money. That doesn't mean you're making money. You could just be getting attention. And
is that a problem if a woman gets attention? Men get attention from various things. Was that a problem?
Woo! See, she hit it right on the nail. She asked, is that a problem that women get attention? Like men get attention for certain things, and so do women. What is wrong with women getting attention from men that are attracted to them? Like, why is that something women need to pay for or in some kind of way give some kind of a payment for the amount of attention they get from men. Like, why is it that it's being made to seem like women now owe men something for the attention that they get? Why is that problematic? Why even bring that up in a conversation? What is the point? Like, what is that going to do? A woman getting attention from a man does nothing to excel a man's career. It does nothing to excel his pockets. So why talk about it? Why make that an issue with men when it doesn't do, whether the attention is happening or not amongst those women? It does nothing to help men be better regardless. Regardless, this is where people start to call misogyny. And I'm very sensitive about that word. I don't like throwing that word around. Just because a guy says something about a woman doesn't mean he's a misogynist, in my personal opinion. But this is how it can lead. I do believe there's things that men say and believe about women that can lead up to full-blown misogyny, and this is one of them. Questioning, shaming, and making a big deal out of women getting more likes than some computer nerd guy who lives in his mom's basement that also wants lots of likes. Like, criticizing a woman for that, it's just like, why? What? So then what's the solution if these girls stop getting attention? Then what's going to happen to the men? Are they all of a sudden going to become millionaires? Are they all of a sudden going to get the promotion they've always wanted once the girls on OnlyFans go away and the attention stops? Like, what's going to happen if the criticisms that they have for women getting attention, it gets met? The desires that they have to get the attention out of here gets met. What's going to happen for men? Nothing is going to happen for them. Okay. They're jealous. They're jealous of women. They're jealous of womanhood. They're jealous of beauty and the value that women are born with. The value that women are born with is the value to create life and birth. And, we all have, vaginas, which men love. So since men also, historically especially, have run everything, since women have something that they love and they've run everything and they're in charge, they are going to do certain things to make sure that they can continue to get what they love. And they're going to be in charge and make things happen, in other words. And especially back in the old days when, before women had any of those rights and women were under their fathers or uncles, brothers, or what have you, it was, it was those men who opened up that access for other men to have their daughters to be married for sex and stuff like that. Other words, they went to brothels to get sex for the most part. So, it's a lot of men who are out here jealous. It's a lot of men who are out here angry that not only are women born with value, but some of these women, I wouldn't say use, their private areas for money, not all of them, but use their beauty for money. They have OnlyFans, they post pictures making money, but like she said, some of these girls post pictures, beautiful pictures, and they don't make any money. They don't make any money. And then he's just like, oh, well, that's the trap. That's what we're trying to expose and all this stuff. And it's just like, why are you trying to expose this? Why is it that beautiful women who get attention is so important to men? Why does that bother you? Like, that, it's screaming jealousy, it's screaming hater, it's screaming insecure within myself. Like, that's what it's giving.
Very small percentage of men get attention in comparison.
Yeah.
I mean, this is not even an argument. I mean, listen, you could probably agree.
No, I would agree.
This
as
is
a woman.
absolutely agree. The normal average woman can get way more attention than a male, normal average male, which puts the percentages at, if we just want to be general, 70% of the men are consuming and paying attention to a majority of women, as opposed to the opposite.
Yeah.
When it comes to women on social media, they are producers more than they are consumers. And if they do consume, they might be consuming a makeup channel. They might be consuming something else. They're not consuming the vast majority of male athletes that have even succeeded, because even those guys have to jump through hoops and hurdles when he jumps in his DM. That woman probably would get more attention if she made a video and said, these basketball players are in my DMs, as opposed to her even getting married to that guy today. That's where the problem is.
Coach, let me hone in on this, because I want to tell you a story. But is the reason that you're doing this is to do what? To basically inform men, hey guys, you're gonna have to get in line and wait your turn.
Yeah, well,
you're gonna have to grow up and become
yes
the man.
I mean, because
okay?
that was an hour and a half speech that they took that 20 seconds from.
Well, that's
so
how
there's more
life works
exactly.
these days, okay.
So the broader argument is money, energy, attention, and time.
Gotcha.
Over time, men have to kind of work for their position in life, and this isn't a complaint. A lot of people think, oh, these red pill guys are complaining. It ain't gonna be any different anytime soon, especially with social media. But the reality is, you're gonna have to put in that work. You're gonna have to apply yourself to get to that position.
And this is where the stupidity of the red pill movement comes in, and why, if a guy claims he's red pill, to be honest, no shade, no offense, but you should consider him an idiot. Because what person needs to be woken up and take a red pill to understand that you have to work hard for value? And this also goes to show that men in general, if they believe this, don't understand or know their history of manhood. Manhood, masculinity, once again, set the standards for that, set by other men hundreds and hundreds of years ago, set the standard that the men who were of value in the society worked the hardest. They had families that they protected and provided for. They were in leadership positions. They were trustworthy. They had discipline. They didn't act like man children and throw tantrums and try to call people out and shame people when they didn't get their way. All right, this has been meant. Typically, men should be understanding this. So the state of manhood has went all the way downhill if they now need a movement such as the red pill to wake them up and expose them to the realities of women. Women have never changed. Women have never said that, oh, we're just gonna love you even if you don't protect and provide for us. Historically, that's just not the truth. Historically, women have always loved men that were protectors and providers way more than men who refused to do so, way more than men who were evil, bad, mean, not kind, not trustworthy. Nowhere in history is that. Now, obviously, we have basic morality where we respect and love people as human beings and things like that. But in terms of actually getting into intimate relationships and putting your trust in a man in that way, he has to be a protector and a provider. Historically, this is the rule women have followed. And once again, women didn't make up this rule. Their fathers told them this rule. Fathers do the same thing today. Fathers are still telling their daughters, make sure he got a job, make sure he ain't on drugs, make sure he's not living at home with his mama at 35. Like, fathers are still giving their daughters the same messages in one way or another that they did hundreds of years ago. It's men today that are far behind and are, I don't know, maybe they're still in baby boy mode. So they look at women like women are supposed to be their mothers. So that's why they expect you to want them for them without having to offer the very thing women have needed for centuries in order to survive, which is protection and being provided for by men, especially during the times before women had rights. That is what we needed for men to survive. And that's what we needed. That's what we needed from men in order to even keep sleeping with them, especially, which is what, they valued a lot, but also they value legacy. And in order for women to continue doing those things, we had to be safe and protected and in healthy environments, and we needed to be provided for. Men created that system. It's no different today. The only difference today is that women can now do those things themselves, right? They can make, I'm not going to say make money, because it's never been illegal for a woman to make money. It's only been illegal for them to have bank accounts, but there were plenty of women who made money. Historically, they have, and now that women can buy their own property as well. The only difference is now we're in a time where men have just evolved society so much that keeping women, from attaining those things themselves would probably hold us back. The economy, I've said this before, like the economy and how things are today is never going to go back to that. It's never going to go back to a time where women don't work and can't buy their own property. The economy in this country and other countries like the US make too much money off of women working and being able to buy and consume things, because women have always been the ones who are consumers. We've always been the ones to need stuff, which is how we were able to get men to get those stuff for us and get us and make us evolve, because we were the ones telling men what we needed, and then men provided for it. So now women can now get their own needs met. Women don't technically need a man in the form of a relationship to give her money to survive. She can make her own money. So I want to make that clear. I'm not saying women don't need men. I'm saying women don't need a man to financially provide for her in order for her to survive. Women can work and make their own money now. Big difference. So, there's a lot of benefits that women have to working and stuff like that nowadays, and it's never going to go back to that. But in general, men have always known that they need to have some value in society to be recognized. And it's just like men in the red pill community, I do believe, have been stuck in baby boy mode for large portions of their life, all the way up to adulthood, which is why they need to take a red pill to quote unquote wake up and realize, oh my God, I have to provide to be loved. I have to offer something to somebody in a relationship to be loved. And it's just like, well, no, is Sherlock. Like, yes, you do. Like, what did you think? Never throughout history were men just given things for being men. They were giving things based off of their work. Once again, standards that other men set for each other. Women didn't set that standard. Let's be clear.
Because at the time, and I also tell men, the generation of women that you're trying to date, they're not your women.
Correct.
I say that. That's not
what do you mean by that?
Which means you're going after, you're a 21-year-old man. You're trying to impress a 21-year-old woman who has access to a whole bunch. I say, really focus on yourself. And then when you're 30, go get a 21-year-old, because at that point you have the leverage and options.
Let me give you one story, okay, of why I appreciate what you're saying with this. Okay. I'm 18 years old. I'm a senior in high school. There's this girl at a different high school that I am obsessed with. Okay. I'm like, yo, bro, what's up with so-and-so? I'm telling I'm like, we don't have cell phones. We got social media. I'm trying to use like old school carrier pigeon for my boy to holler on my behalf. Okay. Exactly. And this girl deserved a lot of attention at the time. Okay. Rightfully so. At that time, she was 17. I was 18. Okay. Long story short, I find out that, sorry, bro, she's not interested. She's dating so-and-so who's already in college, that's driving a BMW. And I'm like, life's not fair, bro. I love this girl. I can't believe it. Like, life sucks. Fast forward, I see that same girl at a birthday party for a friend of mine's 40th birthday party. Okay. And I'm like, and I go, wow, she don't look so good.
No.
I said, oh, life's been kind of rough to this girl. Great girl, but I'm glad that I didn't get what I wanted when I was 18 years old. Okay. And since then, I've gotten that girl times 10, a million. Okay. But guys are very myopic. When you're 18, you want that. Oh my God, I want that.
Right.
If you're willing to wait the time and invest and improve upon yourself when you're 30 or when you're 40 and your sexual market value peak and you've taken care of, your physicality, your mentality, your pocketbooks. Now the world's your oyster. It's just very hard when you're young to realize that.
Well, it's hard, and also you have Mother Nature and Father Time playing a cruel game on you, hyping you up on testosterone, which is a powerful drug, which is a need for you to have it now.
One of the things I tell young men.
Wait, they don't want to hear me say, slow down.
No.
Slow down. They like, I want it now. Tell me how to get it now.
Exactly.
And then you kind of get walked down a trap that you cannot dig out of, or it might take 20 years to dig out of.
And here's the difference between back then and now is that there was no social media then.
Right.
So she was getting hollered at by the 21-year-old cool guy that picked her up in the BMW. Now it's that guy, and I lived in Miami. So that guy in Miami is hollering at her. But now it's guys in Dubai, in Australia, in Europe, in London.
And here's the thing about what, in general, this type of message is saying to guys. I've talked about this before. Black Widow says, "Well, you encourage men to wait until they are 30 to get a 21-year-old. He couldn't get at 21. This is absolutely crazy. That's giving them space to stay in perpetual boyhood." Yes, exactly. Right. So the thing about this is, I've already showed the statistics on my channel. Majority of people are not marrying other people that are 10 years to 15 years of an age difference. Majority of people, both men and women of any race, of any income level, that get married are marrying people between a 5 to no more than 7 year age gap. Really, it's about 3 to 5. That's the main core of it all. And I know there's some ladies on here that are younger that would date older men. Nothing wrong with that. It's just the fact of the matter is that's just not the majority of relationships, and that's fine. That's kind of always been how it's been for quite some time. And just in the way long time ago, like way prehistoric, like couple hundred years ago, younger women were marrying older men, but due to medical needs, younger women were able to survive, have a higher chance of surviving if they gave birth compared to older women surviving and giving birth a lot of the times. So, this message of men should just completely neglect an intimate relationship where they are emotionally available from the age of 18 to 35. That's like over a decade of someone's life. Choosing to not engage their emotional state when it comes to women, instead just engage like hookup culture, right? So staying in hookup culture for over a decade, and then all of a sudden on the 13th year or the 12th year you come across a wife, and you're going to be this amazing husband and father after 10 years of just seeing women as sexual conquests and sexual objects. Mm-mm, mm-mm. It don't work like that. It doesn't work like that, not at all. Men that go that long without the ability to genuinely pair bond with someone aren't going to get it right 10 years later and succeed majority of the time. The older men get and are single, the least likely they are to be married. That's a legitimate statistic, versus the opposite for women. No matter your age as a woman, if you're a mom, either, you have a higher chance of getting into a relationship versus a man. I know that sounds weird and like, how can that happen? But it happens because men, like they complain themselves here online, already don't get a lot of options, and women in general. So in the event that they do, it's not always successful in terms of a long-term partnership compared to women who have a lot of options. She has a higher chance of finding something real. Is it guaranteed? It's not going to be guaranteed with the first guy you go on a date with, right? It may take a few dates, it may take a few guys, but you have more options of men to choose from. Just because you're a woman, you're a beautiful woman, or you're a younger woman, or you're a woman of a certain career, so you have exposure to a certain network of men, you do have options in multiple ways where you can find something real, versus a man who does not. And that's what the men literally complain about, that younger guys get no attention, they don't get options, and all this other stuff. So to go 10 years not being able to have a real relationship with someone, you're not going to be the guy who shows up as husband of the year after 10 years of hooking up. That's not it. Usually guys that I would consider quote unquote husband of the year are guys who have long-term relationships and can maintain long-term relationships because they're used to sharing space and having something real with a woman, versus guys who literally stay single for an entire decade and then all just expect to have a perfect or just this amazing ideal marriage. That is just not possible. That is not possible whatsoever. Learning IT says they live in a world of delusions. Absolutely. They live in a full-blown world of delusions that go 110% against the reality based off of science and history of humankind. They live in a full-blown world of delusions. 21-year-old girls are not lining up to marry damn near 40-year-old men who just started making six figures. There's lots of 21-year-old girls who are making their own doggone six figures because maybe they're on YouTube or they're bloggers and they have they have fashion channels and stuff like that. These younger girls are making their own money, living in luxury apartments. Like, they're not lining up to marry guys like that, like this. They're not. In any event, they get into a relationship, it's with a man within their age group. They're not seeking out men who are 37 years old, 37 to 40 as their first choice. Usually, they're not. They're not at all. These girls are making their own money off of social media, right? Posting brand deals and brand endorsements, posting what they just bought from Shein and stuff like that. Like, they're not reliant on a man to make them six figures and to be provided for in that way usually. Right? A lot, like I've said before in other videos in general, majority of women actually aren't traditional. Majority of women make their own money and are okay with doing so, and they don't care to have a man provide for them. They care to have a man who, if anything, makes his own money as well and is on their level. Like, we hear that more from women saying, I want a man on my level, before we hear a woman saying, I just want to be a stay-at-home wife. Like, I think that more women are wanting to be that, right? And there's even women who are changing their minds, right? They used to be more modern and now they want to be more traditional, but still, we're still not there to the point where traditional women are the majority. We're still not the majority. We have a lot of women changing over to be traditional, but it's still not the most. So men are shooting themselves in the foot with this rhetoric of don't do anything, just put your head down and work and have some hookups, but nothing else during this whole time. And that's just not true. And single men that are well into their 30s and almost 40s are not even going to be highly respected in the workplace and amongst other men because they're not married. And, marriage, this is the standard, once again, that other men set for each other. Marriage matters to other men. You're a trustworthy man if you're married in the eyes of another man, especially a businessman. Businessmen who are married tend to only feel comfortable doing business with other married men. The CEOs of Fortune 500 companies, if you look this up, they're all married. Pretty much all of them are married. It's only like less than just a few aren't married. I'd say about 90% of Fortune 500 CEOs are married. I also looked that up on my channel as well. And their wives are educated women. Some of their wives have PhDs. Some of their wives lead their own nonprofit organizations. Like, these women aren't just women who stay in the house and do and say nothing and just worship and serve the husband. Like, these women are smart and they have skills, and they also are at their husband's side being a helpmate in ways outside of the home as well. So that's the reality. And men who think like this, they're only going to be able to succeed in this forever bachelor lifestyle if they become entrepreneurs and literally live by their own rules. If they're trying to be a CEO of a Fortune 500 company or anything like that, where they're, I wouldn't say under someone, but leadership on a team of executives where they have to be appointed to a position, single men like this are not going to get far.
Offering these women
world,
everything.
Yeah, it's tough.
So women have the advantage. Now, Allie, you're gorgeous. You're married. Don't get offended. Women have the advantage from 18 to 29. They're hot. They're young. They're beautiful. They're vibrant. They got the advantage. Men have the advantage 30 plus. 30 plus. Because it's going to take time to become the man that you need to become.
The maturity level. I think
Exactly.
even in my marriage, I mean, I'm matured faster than my husband. I mean, certainly I think women, we start from little girls wanting to be married with baby. I just feel like women do, and I think even medically, like, women mature quicker than men. And so I think even when a woman is 22, if she's not in her 22, if she's more of an advanced, it takes the man a little bit longer before I feel like that leverages out, which I do see why a lot of women, kind of as you get past 35 for men, it just becomes more successful in terms of relationships and stuff. I think young men and young women at the same time is just a disaster.
Well, I always try to look at terms and things of money and finance. And I'm always telling young people, stop day trading. Okay. Day trading is not, if you're thinking short-term day trading, I'm up, I'm down, it's like, now I'm a big advocate of decade trading. I started investing when in 2008, 2009 at the bottom of the market. And every year I've just been throwing money in and it's turned into a lot of freaking money. But if you can kind of use that analogy for life and relationships, it's like, yeah, you might not be getting a lot of action now or on eyeballs now. Just wait 5 years, wait 10 years, let it marinate, improve upon yourself. You'll see what happens. Like your mindset is so much different than when you were 19, right?
Of course. No, and I think it's really good. And like I said, it's always an interesting relationship because so much of the wisdom, and I love that part because I'm all about personal accountability, right? And I think sometimes it's like we talk about what cannot be controlled. And I love what Coach Greg Adams just talked about as a man, what can you do? Okay, like we've watched 100,000 problems with women today videos. You know the market is difficult. You know the SMV. You know the graphs. You know everything. What now? And that's the part where I'm obsessed with, right? And I love that information about actually now, how can we become better as men? How can you make yourself more desirable? How can you make yourself more competent, successful, overall a better individual? And so that's what I'm consumed about. And so I really appreciate you sharing that. I think what's important for the guys to realize is in life, there's things you can control and there's things that you can't control. If you're going to fight the system and things you can't control, you'll be miserable. But if you can control what you can control and build yourself up to be a better man, every man can have a better life. And that's what it's all about.
Let me, are you guys familiar with the Minect that we have? Super chats? All right, cool. We'll get to that in a second. We've developed an app here at Valuetainment where you can ask questions, right? I think you guys should all be on it. By the way, we'll talk after this, where people can ask you questions and you can give advice. I think all three of you would be amazing giving advice out there. I got this question. Okay, I'm not going to put this dude's information out there.
I'm just
no. But he asked me a question. He's basically saying, "Hey, look, I'm 23 years old. I'm making good money. Okay, like I'm debt free. I've saved up, but I'm really lacking in the relationship department." He's saying he's a virgin, and in fact, he's actually never been kissed, which is kind of intense situation, age 23. And, I had to give him advice. And I'm like, yo, bro, like, kind of gave the shit sandwich. Like, congratulations, you're making money. Good for you. Congratulations. Keep up the good work. That's, a part of the battle. It's part of the equation. Now as far as your relationships go, and he said, listen, I'm not Brad Pitt, but I'm not bad looking either. I respect, awareness, very important for a guy. But then he said he didn't have a lot of friends, like guy friends. Okay. That was kind of part of the reason. And I was like, well, look, naturally, most people will say, well, get out there and go start picking up chicks, bro. I said, listen, you need to develop a good network of homies to go out with. Because if you're with good friends and you've got a good support system, the homies, the squad, we all know this, you guys will run into a crew of chicks, 2, 3.
And this is another good point too. I don't think that, if you meet a guy and he doesn't have any friends, he never goes out with anybody, to be honest, me personally, I would consider that a red flag, because men who are likable and charismatic, they have friends. They have people that want them around. So a lot of guys are complaining that they don't go out much, they don't have friends, they can't attract girls. The guy he's talking about is 23, a virgin, and has never even had a first kiss, but yet he makes really good money. This is where the conversation of men needing to work on their communicating skills comes in. And this is going to be the reality for a lot of guys who follow this advice of just working and on just trying to hook up. Their communication and social skills especially are going to decline during this period, and they're not going to be suitable for having a marriage and leading a wife and children. They're not going to be suitable for that role because they haven't even had any time developing a good social life or relationships with anybody else. Right? Learning IT said, and that's his fault. Exactly. That is his fault. Women are not, when you talk about men who are virgins and kissing and stuff like that, and, what men aren't getting from women, essentially what these men don't understand that they're actually discussing is a woman's body, okay? It's not a number of how many chicks you can just lay. You're talking about another human being's body, exchanging fluids, chances of diseases, pregnancy, and just infections and all types of any imbalances that can happen that can affect you for the rest of your life, right? So this is the major disconnect, and why when you want to tell women about how many virgins there are and guys aren't getting kissed, okay, women are just going to respond like, okay, and like, this is my body, like, I'm not just going to give it to you because out of pity, out of sorrow that you haven't had anyone else. Like, what the hell? This is my body, I only get one, and I have to live with it for as long as I'm here on earth. I am not just going to freely give it to you because you're not having the same numbers as your boys. Like, that is like really, really, like, really crazy to me. And it's not going to happen that way. And that's what I don't think a lot of guys, sorry, I have to whisper because I think I'm being heard right now. But that's what I think a lot of guys don't tend to understand is they clearly have a lack of empathy. They clearly have a lack of understanding of women in general. And this is why a lot of guys who do think like this probably don't, they're probably not good protectors. Because if you're able to understand that when you're talking about getting laid and how many girls you can get, you're essentially discussing a woman's body. And if you understand the importance of keeping a woman's body healthy and sacred, you're probably going to be a good protector or a better protector than the men who don't understand this concept, than the men who believe that, um, in women just being sexual conquests. Usually, like, the guys who were kings and stuff like that and were had a bunch of women running everywhere, they probably weren't the best protectors of those women because they just wanted to sleep with them. They just seen them as bodies. They just seen them as numbers. They didn't see them as human beings. They didn't see the value in their body. They saw their body as objects for his fulfillment instead of seeing a woman's body as, human, as a woman's body as a vessel that can suffer if harm is done to it. Right. So, these conversations on this is also how you get into pickup artist type of conversations where all they talk about is how many women they can get laid and kiss and get in their bedroom. And this is so dangerous to women, right? It is so dangerous to be around guys who only look at you as an object to fulfill their needs, to fulfill their ego, or to give them the status they're looking for amongst their boys as like the guy who can get the girl or whatever. Right? Women are not objects. Okay, we are not just going to give up our body because we feel sorry for you. We have to live in this body. We take care of it. We have monthly cycles. It can get pregnant and we can go through a whole 9-month journey of carrying a child, and then postpartum, which is even more weeks longer, essentially up to a year. Your body, a good year of recovery from childbearing. If you do decide to give your body to a man, those are all things that women have to consider. Right. And because those things were so serious, that's why women were so heavily protected. Women were so, coveted as well by their fathers and things like that. So since a lot of that isn't happening as much anymore, a lot of women themselves come from single parent homes, don't know their fathers, and the protection isn't there. That has gotten lost amongst a lot of men today growing up. They just didn't see other women getting protected. A lot of men, particularly from single mother homes, didn't see their mothers getting provided for or protected by another man. So they can't understand the importance of it in their own dating lives when they get older. And they just can't help it at this point, whether they want to acknowledge it or not. That's just a matter of the facts, which is why they want you to give it up on the third date. Some men don't even want to do 3 dates. They don't even want to take you anywhere, right? I was briefly dating a man. This was like almost 2 years ago now. He was a scientist and he was black, yes, but he was like African. So he didn't want to take me out to dinner. He wanted to just go on walks and sit at the park and stuff like that. And I asked him, why don't we like go get dinner? Like, why are we doing kind of the same dates? I just flat out asked him. And he's just like, oh, I used to take women out on expensive, amazing dinners, but it would never work out. And I just believe that they're all using me for food. So I don't go out on dates anymore. I was like, what the hell? And he claimed that he was dating for marriage. So it's just like, so you're a man who claims that you are dating for marriage. And in the event that you do meet your potential wife, you don't want to take her out to dinner. Right? So it's a lot of stuff like that going on. Men they want you to give them your time. With no guarantees on your end, but all the guarantees on his end. So he only wants to take out women that are like his girlfriend, or some men I've even heard his wife. They don't want to take a woman out on an expensive date unless she's the wife. But then at the same time, while dating this potential wife, he doesn't want to take her out anywhere. It doesn't make sense. So if you're a smart woman, men that think like this, you should not believe that they'll make good husbands, because they're quite literally not doing anything to prove that they will be good husbands. And messages like this is how, men end up just telling each other, oh, just work hard for a decade and then, you will just have your wife. And it's just like, no, having a career does not mean you will be a good spouse. Being able to pay your own bills and someone else's bills still doesn't mean you'll be able to make a good spouse. You have to have things about you internally. Once again, character, morality, personality, all types of other things that money can't buy or can't be earned by money. You need to find out what those things are about you, and that will be the system that will get you through a long-term relationship or get you married. Okay? You can't base it off of income and your ability to provide. Okay? Woman can't be bought. And no woman is going to trust a man with her livelihood just because he has a good career, just because he drives a Ferrari, just because he, has a high-rise apartment or owns his own home. That is a woman who's able to do that. Honestly, I would not consider a very smart and wise woman, because money is printed every day. Money is exchanged every day in multiple markets globally. So you cannot use that as a basis to have your livelihood and your body dependent on it. You're not an object to be bought. And if you set yourself up in the dating market to be bought by men, you're going to be treated like an item. Okay, he's going to treat you like a car. And once he believes you're used up, there's a good chance that he'll trade you up for something else. I'm saying a good chance. I'm not doing any absolutes here. But that is the mentality that men have when they see women as objects, when they see women as something that can be acquired if they just have enough money, instead of seeing women as human beings, where you have to actually be a good person and relatable and a charismatic man. Those things are most likely to get you not only a woman, but friends, business connections. Those are things that are going to get you on the scene and at the table.
Before girls, and good things will happen. But it starts with you. You're making the money, check. Maybe you're a little overweight. Kind of got to deal with that. All right, cool. But I had to give this guy advice. I've never met him. He's probably listening like, oh my God, I'm so freaking embarrassed. But from each of your perspectives, what advice would you give? You know nothing about this guy other than what I've told you. What advice would you give him? Coach, you want to go first?
Oh, man, I got to see a picture of this guy.
I know.
I
can't put him out there like that.
Smile.
Yeah. Man, because oftentimes when you're giving advice, you're giving a couple of points. Yes. And then when you start peeling that onion, all right, you see there's layers and layers to this, and there's something going on there. Yeah. But I can't really describe it. I don't know many 23-year-old male virgins making six figures, but there could be. So I would want to know more. Yes. But if you're just asking me what advice I can give them on this one is understand what manipulation is. You're a prime target. So you fall into a small a category of not that many 23-year-olds are successful. and that are virgins and never kissed a
Right.
girl.
That's why I was like, what? What's
Man,
going
you
on
a big
here?
old target. You a big
You're
old
a
fat,
target.
juicy ass target.
Right.
And I think if you make a decision based on your feelings and not being logical about it, you could be led the wrong way. What he could do is what we call go to the junior college. You know, we can go over to the junior college and have a little bit of fun. My audience knows what that is.
What's the junior college?
The place with the daycare workers.
He can go get him a little comfort. You know, he can go get a little bit of comfort and have somebody rub his leg. You know, somebody at a young variety. That might
what I
be
call
able
the
to go.
shrimp club.
Yeah, he can,
like
he can go over there. He can go over there.
That was
we call him
masked so well.
Yeah,
It's like,
really
what are we
confused for a
talking
second.
about?
He can get him a service provider and then pay her about an hour, and then he can have his
Has
every
his
wish is
experience.
granted.
You know what's crazy?
That's what he can do.
I actually, I'm cool with that advice.
Yeah, go
Just
get your
some
leg rubbed.
experience out there.
Yeah.
Get a hug out there.
Get a hug
at the
Get
shrimp.
one of them Instagram
Club.
thoughts. Right?
Yeah, you can go with the thoughts.
I
You
don't
want me
wanna-
to come back to that,
I
don't you?
do, because I look, I understand your message. Like, everybody's got their thing, and I'm not hating on that, but there's a way to present things. And then when you come out that bold, like Instagram thought, like you're basically labeling all girls on Instagram who are bikinis, the acting that way is like a thought. And so I don't see myself that way. Obviously, I'm triggered. I'm a little triggered. I'm a little triggered, and I guess what is with the bitterness with men caring about how much attention that men are giving women? Like we're getting it from
go,
men.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Handle that. Bring the God into it, then let her know.
Yeah, you bring God into
Now
it.
you
I have
believe
a
it.
straight
By the
thought.
way,
I believe it. Go ahead.
Is this helping our 23-year-old friend here?
Yeah, right. Yeah, she want to know. She want to know. But I'll tell you one thing. Go ahead.
Okay. You want to give him advice? You wanted to? It's your
Let's
show.
give this guy advice,
Okay.
and then let's go back to Allie's comments, and then we'll wrap up.
I think Coach gave I love what he said at the beginning, because there's so many layers to it, right?
Mhm.
In my opinion, he's a tech guy. If he's making that much money at that such a young age, he's not a lawyer, he's not a doctor. He
Yeah.
has to be a tech guy, right? For him to have a career making that much, but not just making money off the stock market, got to be a tech guy. Tech guys are really low with social skills. That's why he's a virgin. That's why he never kissed a girl. So I love your advice about the community of men that he needs to be around. That's really what's important, right?
Yeah.
Because even to Coach's point, he can go to maybe a Columbia and meet some daycare workers, if you know what I mean. But the reality of it
was just in Columbia.
Yeah.
A lot of daycare workers. Shout out to all the daycare workers.
But the reality of it is he'll come back to America and he's not playing D1. So he might get some junior college reps, but you're still not ready to play D1, right?
Right.
So I love your advice where it's like, yo, find some great men and be around them and actually build yourself up. Because the problem is you think you're not good enough because you haven't kissed a girl or you haven't had sex with a girl. You have strong identity issues. And the quickest way of ruining that is to find a woman. And because if he finds a girl and he has sex and she gives him sex and a kiss, he's whipped.
Gone.
You know it. Coach knows it. He's whipped.
True.
He has no identity. He has no backbone. He has
She's
nothing.
gonna own that man.
Absolutely.
She will.
That's what he's saying. He's a sitting duck.
And then what Coach said, he has no leverage.
Yes.
The leverage as a man is having the confidence, having the community, having the support system. So I think your advice head on, find guys, build that confidence, build the community, build who you are. And then I guarantee you, when you start beginning to interact with women, because in due time, if you're around winners, women go around men who are winning. You know, there's that old school red pill line that women just wait at the finish line, right? If you're with your guys and you guys are winning, women will come around and then you can navigate it then, but you got to build yourself up.
I don't really agree with that. I don't think that all women are waiting for guys to finish, hence why majority of women marry men within their own age group. A lot of the times they meet these women in college, far from the finish line when you're in college or you're graduating, and I wouldn't even consider a graduation the finish line because you still need to apply for the job. You still might want to get a promotion and all these other factors to get you where you really want to be in life. And women are marrying men outside of the finish line majority of the time. Majority of the time, women are marrying men outside of the finish line or before they get to the finish line. And this is where you can talk about marrying for potential. And I think, from all the different types of conversations I've heard about marrying for potential, you don't want to marry a man based off of what you think he's capable of. You want to marry a man based off of how he is proving to you, how he's capable of. So this is like, marrying a man who is in medical school, and he's passing all of his tests. Maybe he's top of his class. So the likelihood of him becoming a doctor, just shown by how hard he's working, is pretty high. So you're not marrying him off of potential. You're literally marrying a man who is already where he, for the most part, is trying to be. Like, he's in that process. Like, it's okay to marry men who are in the process of achieving their goals and they're quite literally checking off boxes. But marrying for potential, where a man is doing nothing, he says he wants to do this and that, but he's actively not working towards it every day, that's a red flag in my opinion. How do you feel? So let me see what you guys are saying. Learning IT says they talk as if women aren't in tech. In my experience, a lot of guys in tech are in relationships / married. These guys complaining are just losers and don't want to admit it. Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of guys outside of tech that have these issues. It's not a guy who's in tech. Now, I do see a lot of men who are nerdy having issues like this, whether they're in tech or not. I wouldn't blame the career. Yeah, there's plenty of tech guys who are in relationships and are married and have families and things like that. Black Widow says, no, they're not. Oh, I work in tech. These men are social. They just don't talk to that many women because it's dominated, because it's male dominated. That's true too. Tech is pretty much male dominated, and other fields like engineering and so forth. Those are all male dominated fields. So it can be an environmental thing.
Here's something else that guys will do. I don't know if girls do this.
Yeah.
If let's say the three of us are going out, right? And I'm in this suit and you're in that suit. I'm picking on Coach for a second. We're going out and I go, Coach, what's the deal, homie? Like, we're suited and booted, and you're looking like you're about to coach a basketball game. And you're like, oh, I'm a coach, homie. I mean, I get it. But we'll call you out. We'll say,
you're on YouTube calling Instagram girls thoughts. I feel like.
So let me fast forward a bit, because before she asked a really good question on, what is the bitterness with women getting attention? So I'm really interested to hear what she has to say.
You gotta own some of your stuff. You gotta, like, if you're gonna say it, if it's for views, it's for clicks. If it's because it gives people that factor, it is what it is. I get it. I'm in content creation, but I feel like you gotta hold you to that, and you gotta, like, what is it that just because someone's on Instagram getting attention, why is that gotta be thought? And what is a thought to you?
I did that for you.
I thought
it's on you.
No, let me go. I'm gonna handle it. You can go ahead and follow up.
Yeah.
So what it's Allie, right? Allie would like a wonderful description and me for write a book of how to describe these women. And of course, it's not to slander you. It's a description. I just described who you were, and people can immediately associate it with it. So if I have a few seconds to grab your attention, I can describe it as an Instagram thought, and everybody knows what it is. So I don't have time to be like, well, this young lady who got her titty out, and this one over here who got the butt out, and this one over here who done plumped her lips, and this one over here who's stripping for the camera. I don't have time for that. And so thus I have to give it a name, and I can say TikTok, because that's what my app's popularity is. It's for those holes over there. And so that's what the
So you're describing it as a girl on one of these platforms who's either shaking it or doing something for attention. That's your idea of a thought.
And or money. Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with the quote, but it's shake it, but don't break it. Took your mama 9 months to make it. That's that's Uncle Luke. All right.
Yeah.
You learned that in kindergarten if growing up in Miami.
Kindergarten.
But anyway, did that make sense?
No, I mean, that's how you describe that. I just
did you know what I was talking about? If I say Instagram thought, do 100%, you immediately know?
I think it's just when I think of thought, I think of promiscuity, and it may just be my perception of thought. And so when I hear that, I'm like, well, not every girl that's on TikTok or that's on Instagram in a bikini is acting in that way in life. I mean, I'm a married woman. I don't sleep around with other people. So that was my perception of the word. So that's why for me.
Ali, we've already established that you're an anomaly.
That's what sucks.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I think a thought is not necessarily someone who's doing an act at that moment, right? We don't know what she's doing after she puts the phone down. So the reality is she may not be promiscuous. Odds are she is, to be able to cross that line. However, promiscuity and thought, I don't think goes hand in hand. She's selling, she's advertising. So at that particular point, you're a car salesman. And if you tell me, well, I actually am a distributor of motor vehicles, you're a car salesman. All right. At the end of the day,
Coach, I just got to ask you, you're single, you're successful, life's good.
I just want to touch on that really quick. So, that's what I thought. A thought is a promiscuous woman. I didn't think a woman who takes pictures for attention is a thought. I thought it was, a promiscuous woman, and promiscuous women do exist. There has always been Jezebel. I mean, you can go all the way back to prehistorical biblical times. That's not a new concept. But she's absolutely right. Like, just because there's women who post pictures in any kind of way doesn't mean that they're quite literally living life like sex workers and or strippers or whatever. There's even some strippers that are only stripping for money. Meanwhile, they're going to college and doing all these things. Like, they're not living that lifestyle outside of, the cameras or outside of the stage or whatever. You even have male rappers who are like this. You got rappers who rap about drugs and all types of stuff. Meanwhile, they're married and got kids and take care of their children. So, nothing is exactly what it seems on the screen. But of course, to these red pill guys, the women who are posting any type of pictures like this are in reality very promiscuous and are having loads of sex with the same type of men. And that's why they're bitter and upset. That's really the reason why. And I don't even really believe he answered her question, to be honest. But even if that is the case, even if women are actually out here promiscuous and as promiscuous as the men are saying, the bitterness that men have is still irrelevant. It's still just very irrelevant, because you're bitter towards a person that doesn't want you. And it's just like, it's irrelevant. Like, you still look dumb at the end of the day. You still look dumb. So rather the women are actually out here throwing it back every time they post a bikini, or they're not throwing it back at all. They're literally posting that bikini pic to make money to pay off their student loans. Whatever the case is, the bitterness towards it is so irrelevant and is still pointless.
From the mustache up, you look young. From the mustache down.
Hey man, the younger girls at the junior college, they love all
I'm
this.
sure
Boy. They be rubbing all this. Yeah.
What type of women do you date now?
Well, I don't date. I mate. I practice the art of mating. But dating to me is dead in terms of the sense of what it used to mean. Right?
Okay.
In the past, people used to court to find mates.
Yes.
And then they transitioned to this dating thing where you meet strangers and you gift them things based on some sort of entitlement, and thus it has turned into prostitution. And now we're in the all-out act of prostitution. So I don't date like that.
Yeah.
All right. I might go out and have a little fun and treat some women to some good times and all of that stuff with the expectation they're gonna rub my leg. All right. And that's the situation. And then they go home. Sometimes they might sleep over. I don't know what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
But there's an understanding.
With Grow Ageless,
that this is not going.
But the fact that you've been married, divorced, and have kids, and you've kind of gotten all that stuff out of the way, does that give you the freedom to be like, listen, come, go, please, come. I don't give a shit.
Which is an interesting point, because a lot of men haven't been to that point, and then that's the curiosity. So if they hear me and I'm like, oh, do this, do that, and they're like, well, you already got your kids and you already married.
Yeah.
So I tell them, well, if that's the case, get leverage first. If I can give you a bit of advice, get leverage.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, a guy's going to pick the path that they got to figure out. Like, your path is different from my path, is different from Pete's path, different from Allie's husband's path. Like, I'm at the point now where now I'm in my early 40s. All my boys got married when they were in their late 20s, early 30s. And now they're starting to deal with I don't know, divorce, looking around, all that.
Yep.
And now I'm at the point where it's like, I want to, like, if I do ever get married, whether it's with the state or not the state, or whether there's a prenup or there's definitely a prenup, whatever. Like, I know that I want to have kids. I know that I want to have a family. I know that. Okay. So right now I'm going to a lot of JUCOs and kind of just seeing what's out there.
There you go.
But I don't want to be like, I don't want to get married in the next couple of years and then be that bitter divorcee in my 50s and be like, these fucking hoes out here. Like, I want to.
You're going to get, dude, I'm telling you, that itch that you.
Damn. So I feel like he kind of just, I feel like he just kind of threw a jab at Coach Greg Adams. I feel like he just basically said, "Oh, I'm in my early 40s. I want to get married, but I don't want to be a bitter divorcee." It's like, and it's like, Coach Greg Adams, based on the content and the things he talks about and his outlook on women, it is in general very bitter. He's bitter that women get attention. He's bitter about his divorce, and he's bitter about the ideology of marriage on general, which is why he talks about what he talks about. And he just said, Coach Greg Adams just said that he has children. So he's probably thinking, oh, I have my kids and that's all that there is to it. This is the degeneracy. Like, you can't just have kids, you have to also raise them. You have to be there for them. He's living his best life hanging out with prostitutes and I don't know, sex workers and just mating like a dog with a woman, not dating and anything. But his children, who are teenagers now, have a void missing, and that is the presence of a father. That's always going to be a void. If you're an absent parent, which you just because you can pick up the phone and call, I wouldn't consider that actually present. If you're not in the home every day with your kids, technically you're absent. And you know, in the eyes of the government, you're an absent parent. Like the parent who has sole custody and the children are living with, that's the parent who's present. The parent who's calling and visiting on weekends is not present. They're involved, but they're not present. Huge difference that I don't think a lot of people are acknowledging, right? And then, you know, the other guy, the host, he's saying he's in his early 40s and he's thinking about marriage, and according to data, he's the least likely of all kinds of other men, especially men younger than him. He's the least likely to ever get married at this point. And if he's saying that he has a circle of friends that are already over it and trying to get divorced and looking around, subconsciously he already has a negative perception of marriage. It's not going to work for him. He's probably more likely to get divorced even if he does get married. You know what I'm saying? So that's white, right, Aqua Rose? Like, that is very late to be just now getting married, um, to just now deciding to be intentional about getting married. um, Meaning, you know, maybe he did have opportunities to marry a woman. And when a man reaches 40, there's no way in the world you can believe that a man has just, within all those at least 2 decades of his life, didn't meet at least one woman he could have settled down with. Are you kidding me? Really? Because obviously he's having sex. Obviously he's having certain conversations with women enough to settle down and sleep with them. It's either been him that just decided to not settle down or take the woman seriously. But look, my assumption is that he did come across a woman that he could have made his wife and he fumbled the bag. There's lots of men who have a story of the one who got away, single older men. They all have that story. Um, like, I've never heard an older man that actually wanted kids and wanted a wife who's 45 and up say that, oh, I've just never met a girl that I could have, like, no, that's not very often. That's not very often. Often single men who are looking back on their life can recall at least one woman that he could have started a family with, but something happened, you know? You know what I'm saying? So, you know, he's not going to be ideal for marriage either. He's spent, if he hasn't, I don't know anything much about his relationship history, but if he hasn't had a serious relationship, which he probably hasn't, hence why he's still single, because usually men who do want marriage and do want kids, once they have a serious relationship, they're, you know, likely to get married to that woman at least and propose or explore, you know, the idea of marriage with that woman. They're not at the point where they're older and saying, "Oh, I'm just now gonna start trying to find a woman." Like that tells me that he's probably never been in that mindset to want to be with someone. That's what that tells me. And he probably never will. And the sad thing is he's not an ugly man. He's not hideous. All right. He dresses well. He looks pretty well groomed. You know, like he doesn't seem like a guy who, you know, like aesthetically and on the outside, he's attractive. He's an attractive man. So it's just unfortunate because usually a lot of these attractive men, they, you know, they tend to be ran through. Attractive men aren't the first guys, in my observations, to settle down. They know that they have a lot of women after them and they tend to play the field much longer. But then at the end of the day, he's not, at the end of the day, he still wants a family, just like the average Joe. I think it's actually in data, at least for sure in the Black community, the Black men who are married the most are actually Black men who aren't in the high value category. Out of all races of men, Black high value men are the most single, and the Black men who are married are average earning Black men, which I think is pretty interesting. But Melanie says he's not marriage material. No, he's not. He has a bad outlook on marriage. My reasons as to why he's not marriage material is, number one, he has a bad outlook on marriage due to his influences, and number two, he's to be honest, for lack of better words, he's been ran through. I'm sure he hasn't been celibate. He's been having sex with women with no serious emotional connection. And there's just no way he has the emotional capacity to take on a wife and children for the rest of his life.
It's going to set you up for failure. You know the statistics.
How do you mean though?
Well, listen.
Yes.
We know the statistics, right? You already been married.
Yes.
You said 50% on the legal chart has been divorced,
Yes.
right? But then the second marriages are what?
Yeah. Well,
What is it? 63%?
I wouldn't count the first one.
Yeah, that's right.
Like
If you hear what, if you hear the story off camera, it's a lot. It's a lot different.
Right. It's an agreement.
But two things I thought about, and I wanted to address what you said, and I want to also address another thing that you said in regards to the Instagram thought comment. I just want to share about it briefly. It seems like it's very harsh words, but men use harsh words to describe very blunt behavior, right? And it may seem like he's insulting, but he's really describing what men genuinely feel. And like most guys, when they genuinely feel a woman half naked parading herself on the internet, there's not a level of wife. There's a level of for the night. That's how that's their brain thinks about short-term mating right now.
Yeah. Well, Ali, I showed you that video when I interviewed all those guys at the Male Excellence event, and they the conference from CME. And I asked them, would you marry an OnlyFans girl? They're all like, hell no, for the night. Yeah. She belonged to the streets. Hell no. Fuck that. Maybe for the night. Like, whatever.
Right.
So, but you remember that.
I'm the anomaly.
So it's a hurtful thing to hear him say it, but he's just describing an emotion that men feel. Yeah. And so I wanted to kind of, you know what I mean, make it's I'm
look
not
at
gonna
the fees and the coach on the same team.
Right.
Hey, look, most of the stuff we talk about, we agree
of course,
with.
Of course, we're having fun. We're having fun. It's nothing but content. But to the second point is that's the thing with Coach, and I respect him a lot because I also have that Patrick Bet David thing with marriage. Like I'm only getting married once. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, you know, worst case scenario, I'm with you in about 10 years. Go to Columbia. You know what I mean?
Sauce coach
at junior college.
So but my thing was, if I'm gonna do it once, I want to do everything in my power to make it work. Yeah. Because Coach is blessed. Like I view fatherhood as the greatest gift in humanity. I'm not a dad yet. You know what I mean? Adam's not a dad. I know a lot of guys want to be dads. Yeah. So to me, I'm like, if you're gonna be a dad, try to give your child the best life possible. And the best life possible, as Ali said, is that nuclear family, right?
I believe in that.
Protect yourself. If you want to do the prenup, do the prenup. If you want to get leverage, as Coach talked about, get leverage. Protect yourself 100%. I'm not anti-protecting yourself. But my biggest thing is I know a lot of men want to be fathers. I know a lot of men want to be able to at least try to have a family. And my biggest thing is that if you're going to do it, get all the tools, not hope. As you said, hope is a bad strategy. Get all the tools, get all the wisdom, get advice from men who have been married successfully, who look at their wife like, oh, I want a woman like that in 30, 40, 50 years. Use that then to make your decision. And so my pushback is always, that's why I wasn't calling you a bitter man. I was saying that his experience, why would he want to get married again? He already has the kids. He already did the marriage thing.
Yeah.
Why would he? What, his whole worldview is different. But for most guys in your audience, in my audience, I'm not sure your age demographics, 18 to 31, bro, they've never done any of this before.
Possibility.
You
They
know?
want that
have that
drive. There's a primal drive
exactly.
related to that.
And Coach, and the reason why I'm so hard on men like Coach is that, like, Coach has all the wisdom in his brain. And I'm not saying you're not doing this, so I want to clarify.
Imagine calling a divorcee who actively makes content putting women in the bad light wise. Imagine that, right? So that's pretty much the end. I mean, you know, they don't really make any decent points after that. Kind of gets towards the end where things are, you know, wrapping up. But, you know, in general, this movement of men who are just not trying to see the value in legacy building, women, children, whatever the case is, it's going to really damage them in the end. Women are different than men. We handle being alone differently. Of course, women also get, I would say, lonely, and they don't like to be by themselves either, because women have a desire to nurture things naturally. And in order for us to nurture things and to really fulfill that desire to nurture, being by ourselves isn't, you know, going to be the best way to fulfill that desire. But nonetheless, it still doesn't affect us as bad as it affects men. We have the ability to be on our own if we feel safe and provided for. The ability for us to be on our own and handle things isn't a hard concept. Right, Black Widow Road. Like, we don't seek sex. Like, seeking sex is the last thing that we're gonna seek in our moments of loneliness. That's like not that's not what we're gonna seek. But I would say that when men are lonely, they don't only seek sex, but they also are seeking emotional fulfillment as well, because you have a lot of men that are in hookup culture and are reporting themselves that they still feel lonely and they are consistently getting sex. So, you know, it's not just about it's not about the sex for women for sure, but I definitely think for men it's about sex, but it's way more than that compared to women, where it's not like that for us. We don't care about sex and and our state of loneliness, and emotionally we can gain emotional support from multiple ways because we are emotional beings, unlike men who don't tend to show their emotions that way, which is why they are in need of an intimate partner. And it's the most beneficial for them to have that intimate partner, much more than women. Women don't need to, you know, rely on just a relationship to express their emotions. We express our emotions all of the time, literally all of the time. So, you know, that was the bulk of this conversation. You know, yeah, like I don't consider men like this marriage material. I don't consider men like this marriage material. And I certainly don't consider men like this traditional. Okay, first of all, traditional men are not going to wait 2 decades of their life to be married. Okay, traditional men are actively looking for a wife and to start a family sooner than later in their life. It's like securing the wife and the child and the children is, I wouldn't say the easy part, but it's like the part that is supposed to just happen and come naturally for them. And it's them building their finances and resources to provide for their family. That is what that's what traditional men consider the actual challenge. Like, having a woman by their side is not a challenging thing for traditional men because they have social skills and they're likable and things like that. So attracting a genuine relationship from a woman is easy to these types of guys. Hence why they don't need to build themselves up for a decade in any way to get married. They get married right away, to be honest. They do. And it's the making sure that their wife and child is provided for and safe at all times. That's the part that I hear a lot of men say is always on their mind and is what they're working towards constantly. This message that men like this are giving online about how what they need to be working towards constantly is focused on just picking up women and how many women they can get. That is not how traditional men think, okay? You know how they're bringing up conversations on conditional femininity and how women are choosing when to be feminine and when to not be? This, in my opinion, this types of conversation these men are having is what I consider conditional masculinity, choosing when to pick up the torch of masculine roles between picking up the torch of being the playboy. Okay, they're telling men, instead of fulfilling the masculine role of having a family, wife and children, and leading a household, put that torch to the side and instead pick up the playboy torch, where you're living life, running through women, doing the most, not having any relationships, and then whenever you feel like it and you're like, maybe I should start having kids, maybe I should get married, then you pick up the masculine torch. Like after 15 years of being ran through, then your wife, who's going to bear your children, now gets the used up version of you. Sexually, you are used up. They talk about women being used up sexually. I'm sorry. I do think that men can get used up sexually. Having a penis inside of you that's been in 100 other women is, for a lot of women, that's disgusting. I would not want to lay down with a man who was so sexually driven in his past life. A promiscuous man is also disgusting. A lot of men are trying to make it seem like promiscuous men are sexy and a turn on to women. Traditional women, no, they're not. No woman is going around and saying, have y'all met my man? He slept with over 300 girls. You know what I'm saying? And nobody is trying, no woman is bragging about that to her girlfriends and, like, you know, in general to her loved ones. If a woman were to say that, her network would be like, girl, you need to dump him. That's nasty. He could have a disease. You know, like, they look, the way my support system is set up, they would be like, ew, what? And you're valuing that? A man who's just been out here, like a man who's just been in the streets? Like, that's gross. And it goes way beyond physically, right? Like, mentally, he picks up a mentality. Promiscuous men pick up a mentality as well. Like I said before, they're unable to pair bond for real emotionally, right? They clearly have proven that they lack sexual discipline, hence why they've had so many sexual partners, and hence why they've literally cultivated their life before meeting you around picking up girls. Right? So it's just so interesting how men are really trying to condition and convince other people that they can turn their promiscuity on and off. They can be promiscuous for 15 years straight, and then on the 16th year turn into this traditional, masculine, amazing, loving husband that can protect and provide and knows exactly what to do for his wife and child. Are you kidding me? Are you serious right now? Nowhere within your 15 years of promiscuity as a man are you showing that you're a good husband. All right. So that guy who's in his 40s, the host, he's not husband material. He's done nothing within his life outside of sex and work to prove that he's a good husband. All he's saying is that, oh, I just want it because I just want kids. Oh, I just want it because, you know, I'm able to provide. I have the money now. Like I said before, it's going to take more than income and desire to maintain a good marriage. Like, you actually have to be practicing these principles of what it means to be a good spouse in your life, which means you're going to have to practice discipline. You're going to have to practice good social skills and all these other things. And it's not going to happen if you're getting ran through. Okay, getting ran through does not show you'll be a good husband. Being able to pick up women does not show that you can keep a wife. That's not it. I have no idea, as men who are claiming that they are logical, I have no idea how they are making that logic make sense. That being a man who can pick up girls means you can also keep a wife. Picking up something does not guarantee you can keep it. I don't know who's telling these men this and how they're making that logic make sense, but it genuinely makes no sense. It makes no sense. I would never trust a man who can, just pick up women but can't keep them. Right. And I've said so before on my channel, like, I don't want to make any absolute statements, but the likelihood is what I'm really talking about when I say these types of things. And men who have been single for years and are well into their 30s, accomplished and make good money and can go where they want and all these other things, but are still like they haven't had a serious relationship. I don't even want to say marriage, but they haven't even had a serious relationship in years. That is a red flag to me. How are you supposed to be this high value guy, but you haven't even had a relationship? Like, how does that make sense? You're not high value to me, because the very thing that really, to be honest, matters the most as human beings, relationships are very important, right? And that very thing is the one thing you can't accomplish. Like, what? That's a red flag to me. I wouldn't want to be with a man who hasn't shown his ability to connect emotionally with another woman, in my opinion. Keyword, connect emotionally, not promiscuity. A lot of men consider this, like, consider a woman saying this as, oh, so you want a man who has had a bunch of women? No. But people would want a man who has shown in some part of his life that he's been able to have healthy emotional connections with someone. And maybe, I do agree, like, there doesn't have to be a man who had a first love before you, because sometimes you are the first love and you end up marrying him. But either way, like, you still are able to see that he has a good, healthy emotional connection with other people in his life, to the point where he's been able to maintain relationships, and he has just a healthy network of people that he can say in one way or another that he has deep and high regards for. And a man who just doesn't have that in the form of a romantic relationship, family members, it's not going to work. Like, that's just another thing. Like, usually the guys who are single for years and have only just been hooking up, I've also noticed, like, once I get to know them a little bit more, they don't talk to their parents as much. They have siblings that they don't really call or talk to either. Their friendships are very shallow, right? They don't have friends to talk to exactly. They just have friends to go out with, but he doesn't have any friends to talk to and call on and discuss things with as a man. And, those factors literally all come into play with those types of guys. Right. So I wouldn't consider a man that hasn't shown his ability to, connect emotionally with someone. I wouldn't consider a man like that marriage material or material for a long lasting relationship. Definitely not a marriage, in my opinion. JL says some of them are trying to enter marriages where they can continue with that behavior, one-sided, of course. Yes, absolutely. These same guys are just, they're not marriage material. They don't understand what it means to enter into a union where you will have to practice some form of self-sacrificial love. Women definitely sacrifice in marriages, y'all. Like, we sacrifice quite literally our body if we choose to have kids. Our youth as well is given to our husband, to be beautiful. And there's things that women sacrifice, especially emotionally and mentally, to care for your husband and for your children. And men are trying to make it seem like they should not sacrifice anything. Um, and that's not healthy. Men's sacrifice comes in the form of sexual discipline. And once again, that standard was set by other men. Other men historically believed that men who had good discipline when it comes to sex were of value. And so men are just trying to change the game to eliminate that standard. They don't have to practice sexual discipline while married, of all things, and they can still go out and live these single lives while married. And the men that I hear talk about, still exercising options while they're married to their wife, they say it like the woman just can't leave and go anywhere. Like when a woman is in a marriage and she gets cheated on, she's most likely to leave. Like the guys who say this, like, oh, he's gonna exercise options, they say it like the woman doesn't have the right to go. Like women can leave you, and you can just go back right back to where you started, back into the hookup culture. No woman has to deal with that anymore. Um, and obviously, no woman wants to deal with that. No woman wants to leave her marriage to a man that she thought she would spend her life with, but she can't stay with a man who is basically not intimately present. And he's not intimately present because he's sharing it with other women. He's sharing it with someone else. So he can't be present with you if he's in someone else's bed or has someone else in y'all's bed, which is really horrible. Right? Aqua says they have some nerve calling women thoughts. They are thoughts. CGA and that other manosphere men tell men to sleep with at least 30 women before settling down. Yes, Aqua, it's quite literally disgusting. It's quite literally disgusting. Men are believing that in order to be a husband, you have to be a slut. Period. They are teaching each other in this space that in order to be a good husband, you have to be a whore. Don't worry about your emotions. Don't worry about your social skills or your communication skills. Worry about being a slut. Worrying about running through as many women as you can, and then you'll be able to have the perfect household. What? Oh my God. Like, oh my goodness. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's really ridiculous. And any type of man that you meet who may claim to know about certain manosphere content creators, to be honest, I would stay away from him. He's not going to make a good partner. Because all that they talk about in the manosphere is get money, go to the gym, and have lots of sex. That is the basic, that is like the core of what they talk about in this space. And then from there they say, then you'll be a better man. Then you'll have more confidence. Then you'll be where you need to be. Then you'll have all your friends, but you just need to do these things. Get money, go to the gym, go out, and then you'll get all the sex you want. And it's just like, the research says that is not what men need to focus on to be better in relationships. Right? So it's going to be interesting to see a lot of guys in the next 15 years, especially these men, and where they're at. But of course, they're going to be exactly where they are now because researchers have already predicted that majority of people are still going to be single in the next decade. It's not going to get better. Okay. Men are not going to consume this content and then all of a sudden learn how to be amazing husbands. That's not even in the research. The manosphere is already being investigated by the FBI. People are writing articles about how, crazy things are being said about men from this space. So professionals are already saying that this space is not going to lead men to be um, great husbands and great fathers. It's just going to lead them to continue to be selfish, and it's going to lead them to continue to, have no regard for anyone else in any kind of way, shape, or form, and just have this, unchangeable contempt for a woman. Okay, for women that make it clear that they don't even want to have anything to do with you, which is why they don't give you attention and all these other things, and men are just going to continuously be mad about that. So, I just wanted to talk about that video. I thought it was, in general, I thought it was a good debate, and in general, I think marriage is worth it today. I think it's definitely worth it for Black women, especially considering, the state of a lot of Black women and the type of families that they've come from where they didn't receive a lot of support. And if you do meet a good man, especially if you're dating interracially and you're open to marrying outside of your race as a Black woman, I do think that, you can benefit a lot from that. According to the data, Black women who do marry out have better relationships. They last longer, and they're the least likely to get divorced. And even if you have a child by a non-Black man, the data also says you still have a 60% chance of that man proposing to you, compared to if you had a child out of wedlock with a Black man, that chance is only 5%. So dating out and dealing with men from different cultures who value family and value providing is going to be way more beneficial for you, and it's definitely going to be worth it. So, conversations like this between what these guys are doing here online, they are setting themselves up for failure. And a part of me is really glad that they're putting it online for the world to see, so that us women can know exactly who to stay away from, and that we can keep ourselves, safe from these types of men in particular. So I hope you ladies enjoyed this live. Make sure to like the video on the way out. Comment down below what you ladies think. I will leave this live up, and I will talk to you ladies in the next one.